Hey gang, welcome to this week's High Value Publishing session. My name is Eric Schoenfeld. I'm the founding partner of Nearview Media. Glad you guys could join me today. I'm really excited about this session. Maybe a little geeky today, but I think it's really important for publishers to understand Google Search Console and how it works, especially with the new change in the Google search algorithm, the helpful content update. Hopefully you all have been reading up about that. Most of my publishing clients are actually seeing no traffic impact or beneficial traffic impact from that recent Google search update, which happened on August 25th. But I'm going to show you today how to use Google Search Console for your publication and kind of why it's so important to do this. So let's just dive on a little bit of housekeeping. This session is being recorded. We will release it on Thursday at nearviewmedia.com. Any links we talk about today, which is primarily going to be the Google Search Console, but I'll put something in there about the helpful content update as well. Those will be available when the link is posted for recording. This is also available as a podcast, Apple, Google, Spotify, your favorite platform. I would encourage you all, please go out there, subscribe on your favorite platform, and leave a review if you would. I still think we're listed as number 3rd marketing podcast in Estonia, which is awesome. It would be great to get that a little higher up there, but I realize we're not like a popular marketing podcast. If you have any questions, post them to the chat here in the live session we're doing today. Or if you're watching online, recorded, you can post them at nearviewmedia.com. And again, thanks to our two partners, What's New in Publishing and Niche Media Conferences. Really appreciate them always taking our content and distributing it to their readers as well. So go check them out, go support them, highly recommended. All right, so let's get into Google Search Console. Funnily enough, Google Search Console is a little hard to find, so you need to search for Google Search Console. You can go to search.google.com/search-console, and this link will be when we publish it. But it's easier just to search for Google Search Console and let it come up. We're going to talk briefly about how to set this up and why it's important. So let's talk first about why it's important, right? So we get Google Analytics, and Google Analytics is great. We can see a lot of information about our site. We can see even some search information about our site. We can go and look at search queries. We can see people who came in from search, but there's a lot about your site that is not bubbled up into Google Search Console, into Google Analytics. So Google Search Console actually allows you to see how Google sees your site. How is it seeing your site? How is it ranking your site? Not necessarily ranking it, but what are the factors that are influencing it on your site from a technical perspective? Now, it's not going to give you insight into, is your content good? Is your content not good? Is your headline good? Is your headline not good? It's not going to give you that kind of information. What it is going to tell you is more about the technical setup of your site and how Google sees your site, and some things that you can do to try to help address that and overall improve your search visibility. So Google Search Console, absolutely critical tool. All publishers should be looking at this on a regular basis. And we'll show you how to get it set up here today and what are the most important things for you to look at within Google Search Console. All right, so let's dive in here first of all. To get Google Search Console set up, the first thing you do when you start up with Google Search Console is you add a property. When you go to add a property, this dialog box on the left will pop up here. Two different kinds. One's a domain, one's a URL prefix. Let me explain. I'm working with one publisher who has their main content website on their www.domain.com, right? Whatever their domain is. But they also have a pretty robust e-commerce store with a couple thousand products in it. That's at store.domain.com. And they also have, they're using Discourse as their community. So they have a community site at community.domain.com. So for them, because they have like 3 separate sites, all distinct underneath one domain, we did the domain level access, which is great, but it's complicated to set up. We have to use special DNS records to get it set up. For most publishers, just using the URL prefix would be just fine. So just literally copy your URL, paste it right in here where the URL is, and then continue. When you continue, then you're going to need to verify your ownership, right? So we haven't verified yet for Concord Monitor, but here's an example. There's multiple ways that you can verify ownership. Now, if you happen to be on Google Analytics, if you have at least edit level permission for the account on Google Analytics, it'll verify automatically. No more work needs to be done. If you have at least publish permission on Google Tag Manager, if you're using Google Tag Manager, it will also verify automatically. If not, see if you can get edit access to set up Search Console, or if you can get publish access on Google Tag Manager. If that doesn't work, you can always add a tag to a meta tag to your homepage of your website, or you can work with your IT department to set up a DNS record domain service at the domain that can give you access. Any one of these ways will work. The easiest is Google Analytics. As long as you have edit access to the account, you can then automatically verify ownership of your property. Again, this is just Google making sure, hey, I'm not just going to let anybody look at your search information. You have to prove that you have access to your site and that you are indeed the owner or authorized representative of your site. Okay, I don't want to spend too much on this, but when we get into here, here's what you see. And I want to apologize in advance and yet not apologize. This is one of my clients. However, what we've done here is we have obfuscated all the identifiers. So all the URLs you see have all been obfuscated because obviously we want to protect the privacy of them here. But I wanted to show you kind of what's involved in Google Search Console, what information you get out of it, and how you can use this. When you first log in, you'll get this overview page, right? And this overview page literally kind of bubbles up information from all the stuff that you'll see here, starting with your performance, right? How many clicks have you received in total from Google Search? Now, I want to clarify here. When we're talking about Google Search, there are actually multiple pieces to Google Search. There's the traditional Google Search. Someone does a search, you come up in the organic search results and click through. There's also Google News within Google Search, right? So we've all seen this. We've done a search for a topic, and there's a little panel or a group of news items that may meet our particular search, and they'll link off to other things. That's actually coming from Google News, not the normal organic search, right? I have a whole separate webinar on this that we did, a whole separate high-value publishing session we did a few weeks ago on Google Publisher Center, getting you into Google News and Google Discover. But that's coming from Google News on the web through a web-based search. And then there's Google Discover. Google Discover is something where Google takes your content and usually on the home page of Android devices or on the home page of the Google app itself, it will sometimes bubble up content that it thinks you might find interesting. So Google Discover will reveal how many people are coming in through that. You do not get to see that information in Google Analytics. So underneath the search results, you don't get to see if someone came in from a normal search or if they came in from a Google News panel search on Google. You don't see that within Google Analytics. You only see it here in Google Search Console. You don't see if someone came through from Google Discover to your site. Actually, Google Discover and the Google News app views are all coming in as unknown or direct traffic to your site in Google Analytics. So if you notice your direct traffic actually has a bunch of things stuck in it, not just people typing in your URL. There's no one's going to type in this big, giant, long URL to your site. That's if someone's coming in from like an email that you haven't put UTM parameters on, or coming in from Google Discover, or coming in from Google News app. Anytime someone comes from an app to your site and it's not UTM encoded, that's going to come through and you're not going to be able to differentiate that in Google Analytics. But you can differentiate that here in Google Search Console. So really 4 things if you were to think about it. There's Google Search. And within Google Search, we can break down normal search results, Google News search results, a couple other ones as well. There's Google Discover and there's Google News. So those are all in here. So let's dive in a little deeper here and get past just this opening screen. All right, so this is looking at search results itself. By default, it's going to show 3 months, but you can change that, and you can actually show up to 16 months worth of history. So 16 months worth of history is all that Google Search Console will give you. Side note, we're going to roll out a little something here with some KPI dashboards, where if we do that, we're actually storing that data offline. So you'll be able to get long-term historicals. But for right now, 16 months is pretty good there. You've got that information here. You can go up to 16 months worth of data. But if you see this here, it shows you how many clicks you've gotten. So the last 3 months, this particular site has had 144,000 clicks from Google Search, and has been seen 13.8 million times. That means one of their listings has appeared 13.8 million times. I'll take that with a grain of salt. That doesn't mean it's been on necessarily the home page. You can see the average position was number 25. That's the third page in, which makes sense for a lot of search results. Average click-through rate is about 1%. I'm not going to go into what industry norms are on here. Just keep in mind that you're always going to show up a lot more in search results than you are necessarily going to get on clicks. You can click these and turn them on or off, and then down below it will show you a breakdown, right? Here's the top search queries. You can click over to what pages received the most clicks, what countries they came from, devices, etc. All that you can see in here. So this is really good. This shows you kind of overall search results coming in from Google to your site and what queries people looked at to find this. When you also go in here, you can change to this, right? So if you click this search type, you can do web, image, video, or news. So this is defaulting to web, as you can see, search type web. But if you switch to news, now all of a sudden you're seeing the news views. That's a little news panel that comes up when someone does a search rather than normal organic search results. So you can see they've gotten 13,000 clicks from Google News results. Again, 144,000 clicks, 13,000 clicks. Still, it's not chump change. It's really worthwhile. And they're getting a much higher click-through percentage and much higher average position. It makes sense. This one happens to be a kind of more of a news-based site. And again, you can see which queries came in, the pages, the countries, etc. That all came in down there. So this is Google search results, but it's showing you the normal search results and the news panel results, if that's appropriate for your particular publication. If you click on Discover, now not all of you will have Discover, or not all of you will have Google News. You will more likely to get in Discover and in Google News if you're publishing through Google Publisher Center. But I wanted to show you what these look like. So let's go through Google Discover. And you can see this is very sporadic. Every once in a while, Google's algorithms determine, you know what, this story would be really popular with people. I'm going to bubble this up. Usually it's some high interest, mostly entertainment or lifestyle type content bubbles up through Google Discover, whereas mostly news-based content obviously bubbles up through Google News. But you will see crossover. And you can see that, even though it's been sporadic, when it hits big. They've gotten almost as many clicks from Google Discover as they have from the news panel in Google Search. But you can see it's relatively sporadic. Again, the same thing down here. You can see the pages and all this information that it comes through on. And then next is Google News. And you can see Google News. This is actually coming up from the Google News app itself, right? So they've had about 7,220 clicks over the last 3 months. Again, is that huge? No, not necessarily. But when you're looking at your results from Google News, you've got to look at the results from the Google News app and Google News within search results, right? Switch that to be news. That's your real kind of search impact from your content going out through Google News. And Google Publisher Center is the thing that helps facilitate that. Go back, watch the old session from a few weeks ago on that. So I want to just break down, first of all, this is something you just don't get in Google Analytics, is you don't get this kind of breakdown of where are my search results coming from? Organic search, Google News within organic search, does Google Discover, or the Google News app. All right, so let's move on. Let's go down in here into Google Search Index. And we can see right here, we have 143,000 pages that are not indexed and only 77,500 pages that are indexed. Whoa, what's going on? This is a great tool. I love to use this tool for debugging purposes to see what's going on. You can see the vast majority of these are coming through from an alternate page with a canonical tag. What does that mean? Well, if you dive into the detail on here, you will actually see that what's coming in here is actually AMP. These guys happen to have accelerated mobile pages, AMP pages enabled, which yes, is being deprecated over time, but still is in use. By the way, it is a kind of a cool interim way to get your site performance on mobile to really accelerate and go through the roof, even if you don't necessarily have the most fast mobile site. A little cheaty way, but it works, and AMP is still out there, accelerated mobile pages. So this is what it mostly is, and you can see we have 77,500 pages that are indexed. When you dive into any one of these reasons, right, like this is excluded by no index, we can take a look down here and we can say, well, why are these no indexed? Should they be no indexed? And we can dive in, we can look at it. In this case, indeed, all these pages are indeed no indexed. They're like things like category pages where there's page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, which you don't need to index those. There's other things where there's parameters on the ends of the URL. So when we took a look at this one here, indeed, there are, it was valid that these are no indexed. But there's lots of reasons. You definitely want to check this and make sure Google is reading your site properly. Video pages, I'm not going to go into this. It just shows you kind of how videos are showing up on your site. If you're doing a lot of videos, you want to pay attention to that tab. But I want to then jump to sitemaps. Hopefully, you are continually generating a sitemap for your site. If you're on WordPress, Yoast SEO, or my favorite, Rank Math, generate sitemaps of your site. You can control what things go into your sitemap, what things don't. All the sitemap does, you then submit that sitemap to Google Search Console. So you definitely want to submit your sitemap to Google Search Console. It's not that Google won't discover your content. Google is constantly indexing your site and looking for things. This is just a way to absolutely make sure Google finds your content and gets it indexed quickly. It's just like a safety net for you. So highly recommend that we always have a sitemap submitted. In this case, this is a sitemap that actually has multiple sitemaps underneath it. That's a whole separate discussion for some session maybe down the road. But you can check and see what sitemaps you have here. There's oftentimes I've gone into publishers and there's old sitemaps that are no longer useful, sitemaps that haven't been submitted, or maybe you haven't even submitted a sitemap at all. So this is one of the key things that we'll typically check on when we're looking at an SEO audit or some things like that. But this is showing, hey, there's 88,514, and you can dive in and you can figure out, well, which of these were indexed, which of these were not indexed. It's a good troubleshooting tool. I'm not going to go over removals. This is removing certain elements and certain content from the Google Search Index if you want to. It's not used very much by publishers, but I do want to dive into now page experience. So you probably have heard of something called Core Web Vitals. If you haven't, Core Web Vitals is something that Google rolled out a while ago. It's a new ranking factor. Not really a new ranking factor, but it better quantifies a ranking factor. As we know, the speed of our sites have always been a bit of a ranking factor, right? All things being equal, Google wants to deliver a site that has a better experience for the end user than one that doesn't. So if you have similar type content, Google's going to say, I'm going to deliver this site that has a better user experience over this site that has a bad user experience. And you can kind of break this into 3 major buckets if you want to. Obviously, I guess a few more. Your site needs to be secure. Gosh, all of you should be using SSL by now. Hopefully you all are. It should be secure. It needs to be mobile friendly. Hopefully you're all using either a good mobile responsive theme. But on top of those basic things, it needs to be fast. Your site needs to be fast. and your site needs to be secure, and your site needs to be stable. In other words, like one of my sites I check out now in a New York Post, I look at that site on mobile and drives me insane. I'm trying to read a page of content, and as things load in, the content keeps shifting down the page, right? That's called cumulative layout shift. So these things are no-nos. They want your site to be stable. In other words, someone goes to your site, it should be fast. It should be formatted well for mobile. It should be secure. It shouldn't be moving content all over the page while elements load on the page, right? It should be a good experience, and that's what this does for you. So as you can see here on mobile, 95% of the URLs are ranked as good. Core Web Vitals, we have 12,000 URLs that are failing. I want to give you a word of warning about Google Search Console, especially when you set up the account. You are going to get email after email after email about how you are failing. Take it with a little grain of salt, because if I've got just like a couple URLs here and there, or maybe even like 20 or 50 URLs here and there that are failing one particular area, I'm not that worried about it. I'm looking at the overall performance, right? 50 URLs compared to 40,000 URLs, I don't really care that much about. So I'm not going to worry too much about those kind of things. But overall, we're kind of taking a look here at what's going on. This page experience gives you a high-level overview of both mobile and desktop. And I'll share something with you with this client. The desktop doesn't look so good. So if we dive into actual Core Web Vitals, we can see that the mobile's looking great. Hey, we got a few URLs that need improvement. We got a few poor URLs, but overall it's looking pretty good. The realities are here. The reason why we got both the good and the poor on this is, again, these guys are using accelerated mobile pages. So the accelerated mobile pages, the AMP pages, lightning fast, and they just work really well. The regular pages need help, and you can see the desktop, we're getting poor results, right? There's poor results. And I'm going to share with you why it's almost impossible for a publisher to get good on both mobile and desktop all the time. Let's dive into the desktop report, though. So I dive into the desktop report, and this is what it says. Hey, you've got 12,500 URLs in your site that are poor from a Core Web Vitals perspective. This is difficult. As you can see here, the reason is what's called LCP, right? The vast majority of these are LCP. What's LCP? Largest contentful paint. Thank you, Google engineers. What that means is the biggest piece of content on your page. For most of us, forget your home page, forget your category pages, forget your author pages. We're not really worried about those. Those aren't really going to rank all that well in Google anyway. I guess some of them can. But the ones that are really going to rank are your actual content, your articles. That's what's going to rank. That's what's going to show. That's what's going to answer people's questions when they're searching for an answer or looking up a particular topic, right? So LCP, the largest contentful, that should technically be the actual content itself, right? It's not going to be the sidebar widgets or the comments section or the ads or the header. It's going to be the actual content itself. How well is that loading on the page? Here's one of the reasons why I see most publishers fail on this. We have a lot of scripts, a lot of tracking, a lot of tracking pixels, and we also have ads. Ads are always going to interfere, and not interfere, but they're going to make your web performance degrade. So one of the biggest offenders is the Facebook pixel. This is why I always recommend you put the Facebook pixel through at a minimum Google Tag Manager, and if you even can, defer the Facebook pixel from loading initially. This is a whole separate topic. Maybe I'll get one of my good technical buddies on here to help with this piece here and how some things we can do to improve this. But scripts like that, there are sometimes tracking scripts like HubSpot, ActiveCampaign that are tracking people coming and visiting your website and putting that information into their profile. That can slow things down. I see things like Magazine Manager, MagHub, things like that. Those scripts can slow down your site. Your ad server itself can slow down the site. So there's lots of things here that can wind up slowing down the site. Welcome ads, right? If you got a welcome ad that pops up, that can slow down the site. In working with this particular publisher, they happen to have a welcome ad. They have a script that has to check for this. And I said, hey, if we got rid of the welcome ad, we could probably improve your LCP and get more traffic in. They made the strategic decision to say, you know what? We want the welcome ad. We've got enough traffic. We're doing okay in search. We're doing well in search. We're maybe not doing the best, but we're doing really well. We're willing to make that trade-off. So these are trade-offs that you have to make a decision of. I just want to make sure you see them. And Google Search Console gives you a very good idea of what is going on and why it's going on. CLS, that's cumulative layout shift. That means the page loads, and as elements load, typically adds. Things begin to shift down the page. LCP is, again, hey, these 18 pages are loading not as fast as we like, but they're not really bad. There you go. That's what this means. All right, let's go to mobile usability. Mobile usability, because every single one of you, Google is looking at your site mobile first. I don't care if you're a B2B market and 60% of your traffic comes in through desktop. It doesn't matter. Google switched to mobile first indexing years ago. So it's really concerned with the mobile usability site. Is your site really usable on mobile? And it looks like all different parameters. As you can see, their site looks great on mobile, works great on mobile. Again, they're using a little ace in the sleeve. They're using it on accelerated mobile pages. So their mobile pages look great, function great, and they're specifically designed for mobile. Speaking of accelerated mobile pages, AMP, here's the AMP report. You can see almost all their pages are completely valid. We got 2 URLs where there's a malformed href tag. Probably someone in the editorial staff accidentally put in the URL wrong, or there's a crawl issue, probably a temporary thing. Hey, out of 12,300 pages, to have only 2 have a little short-term issue, I'm not worried about it. I'm not going to make a big deal of this. But this can tell us, hey, if our AMP pages are having problems or not, if you're using AMP or accelerated mobile pages. If you're not, this won't show up. Breadcrumbs. So breadcrumbs, if you're not familiar with those, are those little things across the top. If you look at here, like here's an example of breadcrumbs, right? I pulled this from the HubSpot knowledge base. You can see knowledge base, marketing tools, campaigns, analyze your campaign performance. These should be breadcrumbs that are specifically encoded with schema data, behind the scenes data on your page. It tells search engines, oh, here's a breadcrumb. Here's what it should be. Breadcrumbs, Google likes breadcrumbs because it helps users navigate the site. It's also things that can sometimes pop these things up into Google search results, and you have to have them encoded right. So that's what this breadcrumbs is here, just saying, hey, how are your breadcrumbs doing? I'm not going to go into events. If you have events on your site, are your event schema properly, right? So I'm not going to go too much into these things here. There's a whole separate section we probably will do on structured data, schema data at a later date. Getting down into here, though, I want to dive into the links section. If you pop in the links section, and I wish I could have shown you these, but this is going to say, hey, external links. These are the pages that have the most links from outside sites into your site. You can see these are the different pages. The top one is 41,000. Let me give you a hint. It's their homepage. But you can see there's all the ones in here. Internal links. These are pages where you have internal links within your site, pages within your site linking to other pages. This is an important thing for Google because the ones that have the highest, most linked pages are the ones that Google says these are probably the most important on the site. This gets into a whole SEO strategy on how to organize your site and internal links. We don't have time to get into here right now. And the top linking sites. These are the sites that have the most links inbound to your site. Now, I always take a look at these because this is a little sign, something fishy going on here. There is something that SEMrush made very famous called toxic backlinks. Toxic backlinks are sites that are out there that are link farms trying to build out and fool Google search algorithms. And they do it by linking through to your content or linking through to your images and having all kinds of things to make themselves appear more legitimate. Okay, a certain amount of those, no big deal. You start to build up a large amount of toxic links in your site. There's a potential that your site could be penalized from this. Now, it's a whole separate discipline. I'm not going to have time to go into today. You can get some insight into this. There's better tools to doing this, but you can get some insight with Google Search Console. For instance, I dove into this one here, and I saw that we had 39,764 links from one site, technewsmax.com, linking to one page on this particular website. Something ain't right in Denmark. When I got in to look at the site, you can't even get to the Tech News Max site. So this is a site that we're actually going to wind up going in and utilizing an external tool. We're going to go in and we're going to disavow all links from this site. Again, managing this kind of toxic domains, toxic inbound links, it's a whole separate discipline. Don't have time to go into that here today, but it's something I want to make sure, and you can kind of get some ideas of that here within Google Search Console in the links area. All right, moving right along, go in the settings. So in the overall settings, I'm an owner here, technically a delegated owner, but I actually verified myself. We've also associated this particular Search Console property with the appropriate property in Google Analytics. Okay, so we've attached Google Analytics to Google Search Console. You can also, by the way, in Google Analytics, attach Google Search Console into Google Analytics. You should do both. So you should attach Google Search Console to Google Analytics and vice versa. Attach them, the two of them together, because they will bring data in from each other. These tools are kind of merging a little bit, but at least they share a lot of data together. And when we do this, this brings into something that's here, this site overview. Now, I didn't bring out the whole site overview here. This is their brand up here. Literally, it's kind of bringing in some information from Google Analytics into here. It'll tell you your top pages, your views, your top searches, it brings in a lot of information from Google Analytics and kind of puts in a nice little report. I don't find it too valuable. I find that Google Analytics and Google Search Console on them by themselves are more valuable. But this is a cool little tool that they've developed from Google Search Console called Search Console Insights that pops into here and brings in information together. So that's it. That's Google Search Console for publishers in a nutshell. Let me answer a couple of questions here. So Kim said, our website articles are not being recognized as news by Google and not showing up in Google Alerts. Why would that be? So Kim, that could be a lot of different reasons here. We'd have to dive in a little deeper here. If they're not recognizing it as being news by Google, first of all, within your schema, are you indicating to Google that these are actually news items, or are they just articles, or are they no schema at all? That's something that can help. The second thing that could be there is, I highly recommend, if you haven't done it yet, watch the session on Google Publisher Center and make sure you set up a Google Publisher Center account, you've validated your property through there, and you're pushing your stories in through Google Publisher Center. That's a better way to notify Google News and Google Discover and other Google surfaces that you have new content that could be potentially bubbled up in there. So I hope that helps with that. All right, gang, that's all we're going to do for today. Hopefully you found this information valuable. Go out there, set up Google Search Console for your property, start looking at that data, and start seeing how Google sees you and make the proper changes to your site to help you show up better in Google Search. Hope you guys have a great week.